We interrupt this record to bring you a special bulletin. The reports of a flying saucer hovering over the city have been confirmed.
Did you really go out with an alien? Uh-huh. What was it like? Real different.
Becoming Human, a Mork and Mindy podcast. Hello, listeners. This is Paula Schaffner with episode 72, The Honeymoon. This first aired on October 22nd, 1981. The IMDb synopsis is, Mindy attracts a lot of orcans when she and Mork spend their honeymoon on his home planet. And they don't mean, sexually attracts them, but she attracts their attention. Although there is one dubious moment about that. As we know, the previous episode ended with them about to go on this honeymoon to work. That was to be continued. This is the third episode in a row directed by Bob Claver, and it's the 12th written by Dale McRaven and the 10th by Bruce Johnson. The opening credits pretty much look like they did before, but they have added the wedding kiss, and we can see Kathy and Exeter in the background. There's a sunny daytime exterior of the house. We'll soon find out that this is later in the wedding day because Cora and Fred come in still in their wedding outfits. They enter from the bedroom to applause, including whistles. They're both carrying small luggage. Cora clasps her hands and beams. She says this has been a day to remember. Mindy was such a beautiful bride. So she's a very proud grandmother. Fred puts one hand on his hip and his elbow on the counter. He says, but Cora, they're honeymooning on Orc. Why can't they go to the Poconos? It's not that he's not proud of Mindy, and of course he thought she was a beautiful bride, but it has an understandable concern about their honeymoon location. The Poconos is just sort of an old-fashioned East Coast place to go on a honeymoon, and it's in Pennsylvania. Cora, who's always been more adventurous than Fred, says, well, I think it's exciting to go to another planet. Fred says he would rather have a frontal lobotomy. Cora considers it and then tells him to go for it. She goes back to the bedroom as Mindy enters from there to applause and whistles. Mindy is in her red Orkin spacesuit with the silver gloves and boots. She briefly hugs her father. She says it's almost time to blast off, so she's trying to be light about this. He says, oh, Mindy, honey, won't you reconsider? I mean, we're talking about space travel here, going off to some strange planet. She says, oh, Dad, it's where Mork grew up. He just wants to share it with me. So I had wondered in the previous episode why they were going to Orc. I thought that was Orson's decision, but it turns out it's sort of a nostalgic thing of wanting to take his new bride to his home. Fred suggests that Mork just thumbed through his yearbook. And in this episode, we sort of get the sense that Orkin High School is a little bit like Earth High School, but probably not that much. I don't know if at that point they were planning to do the episode with Mindy's high school reunion, but that line felt a little bit ironic. Mindy tells her father that she's a journalist and this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Which it is, but again, it's funny to me that Mindy is a journalist and she has all these experiences that she cannot report on because she has to keep her now husband's identity secret. She says to boldly go where no man has gone. That's the first of a few Star Trek references. She says she's thrilled, exhilarated, and then she admits she's scared to death. Fred briefly hugs her again. Very nice that he is concerned and comforting, and she's trying to be brave, but she's understandably got her fears. Mork comes down from the attic to applause, including whistles and also cheers. He's in his Orkin uniform, plus some blue New Wave type sunglasses. He dramatically sings the Star Trek theme. Then he says, boy, that's a catchy tune. I just wish I could remember the words. She asks if these are special glasses to shield their eyes from the ultraviolet rays. He says he just bought them because they're gnarly. That's a fairly early use of the term gnarly, which would shortly become associated with Val speak. Generally, gnarly meant cool, but there were also times when it meant grody, gross. Here it's being used positively. Fred tells Mork that's great, but he puts an arm around Mindy and guides her away from Mork. He asks if she's crazy. Mork, of course, has followed them. Fred tells Mindy that she can't let this man, meaning Mork, pilot her through millions of miles through space. He points out that Mork doesn't have a driver's license, and I'd wondered about that in a recent episode, so that confirms that Mork does not. Mork calls him Pops, as he usually does, and of course now he's actually Fred's son-in-law. He links arms with Mindy so that the two of them are facing Fred. Mork says he's been to the four corners of the universe, he's charted 16 solar systems, and he can refold a road map correctly. He is emphasizing that he is a world traveler. Mindy has been looking at him, but now she gives her dad a sort of, you see, look. It's interesting the choreography of this scene because we have Mindy with her father and then with Mork and symbolizing how she's sort of of torn between these two identities. Fred pulls Mindy over and tells Mork that Mindy doesn't travel all that well. He says that she got sick in her baby carriage. Mindy rolls her eyes. Mork uses a baby talk voice as he pulls her back to him and calls her that little neener pooter. So again, calling her Pooter the pet name of season 4. She laughs. Mork tells Fred not to worry about Mindy. They're going to be traveling first class. A travel egg makes some off-screen beeps. They all look around. Mork excitedly tells Mindy that it's here and they're gonna go in style. He runs the door and they start to follow. He opens the door to an egg and says, Shazbot. They sent the compact model. And my guess is they didn't want to design a larger travel egg, and so there's this cute joke about compact cars. The egg door opens. We see that Cora has now returned to the living room. Mork says they'll just have to make do. Fred says, just a minute. The words deep space and make do don't go together. And he's not worried about the economy savings. It's about Mindy's safety. Mork says, and again, pardon my accents, oh mon papa, mi familia. And then in Italian accent, he tells him not to worry about a thing. Mork takes Mindy's hand and leads her over to the doorway. He says that he's prepared for everything that can be planned. He packed plenty of Dramamine and Tang. He's prepared for sickness, and he's also going to be drinking the drink that astronauts drink. Then he asks if anyone has seen his Dramamine and Tang. Mindy says she packed it. There's a cut to Fred with his arms crossed and rolling his eyes. Mork puts his arm around Mindy and says, my wife. I think I'll keep her, which is at least the second reference to that 70s Geritol commercial. Cora hands Mork a paper bag. She says she packed lunch for them, and she put a piece of their wedding cake in there too. So I thought that was nice that this is how Cora shows that she cares about them, making sure that they have something to eat on their trip. And by the way, it doesn't say how long their trip is, and I'm not sure how we would measure the time anyway. Mork hands the bag to Mindy, who thanks her grandmother. She says that they'll bring them both back something from Ork.
Where are you going to stay up there?
Oh, we're going first class, Grandma. We're staying at the hotel and spa.
Do you have reservation?
No, it seems like a nice place.
Well, just remember, Mork, that's pretty valuable cargo there.
Oh, you're right. I really am proud of this suitcase.
He meant me.
Oh, don't you worry. Your little girl is in very good hands.
Don't touch that! You'll kill us all!
This isn't the first time that Mork calls Cora grandma, but it probably is the first time that he's done it as her grandson-in-law. He does the Orkin name for the hotel and spa, and he says that it's first class. There's, of course, the reservations joke. When Fred refers to the valuable cargo, he of course means Mindy, but Mork thinks he's talking about Mork's silver suitcase, which we've seen on other episodes. Mork refers to Mindy as Fred's little girl. It's not meant in a condescending way. I think it's just sort of Mork is trying to be a good husband and son-in-law and reassure both Fred and Mindy. And I laughed really hard when Mork told her not to touch the button or she'll kill them all. Just the way that was done and then her reaction after that. Then we get the first of a few shots of the travel egg zooming through space. Mork in voiceover says, good evening and welcome to Air Ork's Intergalactic Traveler, the Huevos Grande. So the big egg. They're in their spacesuits and it is very cramped in there. Mindy has the sack lunch and some luggage in her lap. Mork is steering. He continues to do his air steward voice and he says now that they're in flight, he'd like her to be aware of the total lack of safety measures on this flight. His way of easing her fears is to confirm them that this is a completely dangerous flight. He says, first of all, there are no exits, either front, back, or side. And then he points, like an air steward pointing at the exits. He says, in case of an emergency, a brown paper bag will fall from the ceiling, which means absolutely nothing. On this flight, their in-flight movie will be, and even though he said one movie, he actually names two, The High and the Mighty and Fate is a Lonely Hunter. These are both aviation disaster movies, The High and the Mighty from 1954 and Fate is a Lonely Hunter from 1964. Then Mork does the translation in Spanish, but instead he mentions the movie Airport 79, and this was then a fairly recent movie about the Concorde, and yes, it's another aviation disaster movie, and is also probably the cheesiest of the various airport movies. In this scene we can see that Mindy looks scared at first, but Mork does amuse and charm her, and so it's very sweet and funny. There's another shot of the egg zooming through space.
Okay, my turn. I spy with my little eye something starting with the letter J.
I spy the planet Jupiter.
Very good.
That's kind of hard to miss, man. It's so huge. Okay, I spy with my little eye something beginning with the letter K.
Okay. a meteor coming right at us.
Oh, man, you're supposed to say, I spy now.
No!
See? Besides, meteor begins with M.
Mark!
Yeah, it's... Men, wake up. Look on the scanner. We're here.
Oh, Mork. Mork is beautiful.
Well, yeah.
Just think, me, Mindy McConnell, the first woman in space.
Well, you're not the first one. There was a Russian lady, but you're the first one that shaves her legs.
Aren't we going awfully fast?
Yeah, man, isn't it a kick? Oh, there's the city now. I better slow down.
Kitty.
Welcome you to Squelman the Yellow Memorial Airport. There will be a brief delay due to the controller's strike. Don't stand up until we're completely docked at the gate and observe the no screaming signs.
Now she's eating while he's driving. They're playing I Spy, which is probably one of the few car games that you could play in a spaceship. She spots Jupiter, so I don't know exactly where Orc is located, but apparently Jupiter is on the way as they're making their way through this solar system. And I wondered what word he was thinking of that started with the word K, and if it was K in English or if it was an Orcan word. And she has trouble communicating that she sees a meteor. Then we get a shot of Orc. It's very deserty in this and some other shots. I don't know if that matches up to what we've heard about Orc before. She sees herself as Mindy McConnell and notice that she at least is keeping her maiden name, and she's the first woman in space. He says actually there was a Russian lady, but she didn't shave her legs because there's that 70s and 80s stereotype about masculine Russian women. They arrive in the city, and at no point do we find out what its name is. We do know from previous episodes that there is a city called New Orc, but I don't know where they are now. Mork refers to the Squelman the Yellow Municipal Airport. The subtitles on my DVD say Squelm in the Elm. Of course, this is a reference to Mork's hero, and now apparently Squelman is dead. And if you recall, he was a coward. So it's kind of funny that they would name an airport after him, but then again, Orcans do admire what some would regard as cowardice. And we see Mindy, who does shave her legs and is feminine in some ways, doing her makeup, I guess because she wants to make a nice impression after they land. And also, we don't know how long they've been traveling, so maybe this is the only way that she can freshen up. There's a reference to the controllers strike, and that's a reference to the air traffic controllers strike of August 1981, so very timely. It was a pretty famous strike at the time, so I laughed out loud when I heard that today. There is a no screaming sign. It's interesting that the audience applauds at the beginning of the scene. Obviously, they don't recognize any of these extras in the costumes. It could be at the set, although that's fairly simple. And again, it had sort of a desert feel. As for the costumes, I love them in the episode. They are so new wave, quasi-punk, early 80s feel to them. This was how futuristic clothes looked at that time in movies and TV, but it's also how some rock bands looked. So it's just a lot of fun. The colors and the wigs, and we'll see some more in the later clips. We have a robot waiter, which felt very contemporary. We see a bit of the taxi, and it looks like an open egg, but it's got a black and yellow checker design. There is actually somebody recognizable on screen, and that is Felix Silla, or Silla, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, and he's standing by the taxi. He is credited as the Orcan porter, although he doesn't have any lines. He lived from 1937 to 2021. He was most famous as Cousin It, but there are some roles that he had where he was actually visible. His first was in Bonanza in 1963, and he kept working on into the 90s, tapered off somewhat, but had a role in 2018. It's just made me happy to see him. He also did some Sid and Marty Krofft programs, so there was a nostalgic feel to the sight of this small actor. Mork and Mindy hold hands, and she tells him that Ork is amazing, and he says he knows. She says, look at this hotel. Everything is just so futuristic, and she means futuristic by Earth standards. Obviously, by Ork standards, this is probably pretty basic. In fact, Mork will shortly say that's one of the old downtown hotels. I notice that one of the men looks like he's a werewolf, but he's got sunglasses and a gray suit with silver lightning bolts on the lapels. The women's outfits tend to be more remarkable, but he stood out. Mork says that Mindy should see the hotels down in the strip. Boy, Kenahara. The way this is spelled in the subtitles, Kenahara, I thought it was Japanese, but a Google search gives me Kenahora, which is a Yiddish expression meaning God forbid. But it's also an expression to show that one's praises are unenvious and genuine. I'm not really sure how we're supposed to take that, if it's a good or a bad thing, if the hotels on the strip are good or bad. Mindy wonders what they're going to do first. She just wants to do everything. So she's very excited to be on Ork after their long journey. She still has a lot of energy and curiosity. He says they'll go to see his old neighborhood if she doesn't mind digging with her hands. And I wasn't sure what that meant. Like it was covered up with sand, maybe because it's so deserty? Or is that like a Planet of the Apes joke? Didn't really get it, but it was still funny. As they're talking, there's a cut to 3 women, and one is in pink, one is in purple, and one is in orange. I'm not positive because, of course, they're wearing a lot of makeup, but I think that the one in purple might be Gary Marshall's sister, Ronnie Hallen.
Oh, no.
Oh.
No.
What's that all about?
Oh, that's our version of the National Enquirer, men. You see, well, here you're going to be kind of a celebrity because they've never seen an Earthling before. There's going to be a little giggling and a little gawking, kind of like an Alexander Haig press conference. No.
I suddenly feel very tired and very out of place. Let's just go to our room.
All right, man.
Well, Viscariba Beva.
What did you say?
I told him you weren't that contagious. And also, I said you were housebroken, too. Don't worry.
May I help you?
Yes, we have reservations under the name of Mork.
Min, why are you talking to him?
He asked about a reservation.
Min, that's a penguin. They don't talk. You hardly ever take reservations.
Yes, Mark. And this must be your wife, the Earthling. Well, it takes all kinds.
Orlando, this is taken care of through Orson's office. We'd like the very special room overlooking the ice machine.
The room won't be ready for 30 microblimps. Nano.
Doesn't he look amazingly like Elton John, man?
We can see that the women are using flash photography, and there's at least the third reference to the National Enquirer. We get a joke about Alexander Haig that also made me laugh out loud, with people giggling at his press conference. Again, the costumes are great, and Mork gets rid of the crowd by telling them that Mindy isn't contagious, and she is housebroken. It reminded me a little bit of how the Necrotons thought of Mindy as Mork's pet. Then Mindy goes over and talks to the penguin. It isn't explained how a penguin is living in this climate or on Ork at all. It's just there. And then they have to deal with the desk clerk, who's very much like hotel desk clerks for Earth in movies and television, where he's just very snippy and condescending and possibly gay in the grand Franklin Pangborn tradition. He refers to Mindy as Mork's wife, the Earthling, and this is just obviously very weird to him. And his name is Orlando. Mork says that this has all been taken care of by Orson's office. So I wondered about that. How did they get Orson to not only give in and turn Mork back into a humanoid after he had turned him into a dog, and also to make all these honeymoon arrangements? Orson is not actually in this episode, oddly enough, but there are definitely references to him, and that feels odd to me. Not necessarily bad, but I feel like if it was an hour-long episode, which I really wish it was, that we would have had at least Orson calling or sending a telegram or something, because they want to drive me crazy about bleems. Their room will be ready in 30 microbleems. And Mork makes an Elton John reference. The desk clerk was played by Louis Carey, who had a handful of other roles in the 80s. Mindy says Orson carries a lot of weight around here. It's sort of a fat joke, but sort of not. She suggests that they get Orson to lean on the snippy little guy. Mork says, listen, I'm your husband. We don't need Orson's weight. Mork says he himself has a lot of clout around here. He used to be the dinner diver her in the lobster tank. So apparently they have lobsters. He tells Mindy that if the penguin gives her any trouble, she can wait right here. She says she'll just browse, like she's in a store or a library or something. Mork goes into the opening where we saw the desk clerk. Mindy nervously looks around.
Hello. Why do I feel like the Elephant Man? Excuse me. On Earth, we don't poke people we don't date. Okay, that's enough. No more poking. More.
Swan zip, Lotto Daisy.
Oh, no, officers. They didn't mean any harm. I'm sure they've just never... Wait a minute! More! Wait! I'm an American! Help! More! Help!
Nazida, Mazda, Nazim. What's action? Min, I've arranged for the room, hon. Peekaboo. Oh, hope she didn't go in the pool. It hasn't eaten yet today.
For 3 years, Mork's spark laugh has been very cute and very him, but it's sort of nightmarish to have a crowd surrounding Mindy and laughing in that way at her. And she says she feels like the Elephant Man. And the movie came out about a year before this episode aired. And so she's basically saying that she feels like a freak. She tells the guy who keeps poking her shoulder that they don't poke people we don't date. And it's not said suggestively. And then the policemen arrive. She thinks that they are coming to her rescue, but then it seems like she's the criminal because she's an Earthling. And she says that she's an American. And so she has sort of, not exactly white privilege, but like she thinks that she can go somewhere and just has to go to the American embassy and she'll be safe. It's starting to sink in that her background is no protection for her here. Again, the costumes are great. Mork is in his element here. He is home. I don't know if he grew up in this city, but I think so because he's going to visit his old neighborhood. In any case, he can do Orkin greetings. Whether or not these people are strangers, he can be friendly with them. And then he realizes that Mindy is gone, and I kept wanting Felix Silla to speak up and say that he saw Mindy dragged off by the police. And presumably he does in between the scenes. And Mork is worried that Mindy may have been thrown into the pond, which has not eaten today. Again, that thing of things being sentient that we don't expect. Then we get what is, I assume, a daytime exterior of the city because the sky is light, sort of. Mork in voiceover says, "Hello, police?"
My wife is missing. She's an Earthling. Yeah, she'll be the only one who knows who Claude Akins is. Oh, never mind. Thank you anyway. Man. Oh, man. Are you all right?
Mork was dragged out here by the space cadets and taken someplace for this physical examination. Oh, they paraded me around and asked me all these questions I didn't understand, and then they gave me this. I guess it's some sort of a visa or something.
Oh, man, that wasn't a customs office. That was a pet show. You didn't do too badly, though. You took 4th place.
Pet show? Oh, I'm so humiliated.
So he's using a phone robot. There's a reference to Mindy being the only one who knows who Claude Akins is. And Claude Akins was a character actor who worked from the 50s through the 90s. And that time had recently been the star of the TV series The Misadventures of Sheriff Lobo. Mindy thinks that she was being interrogated by the authorities and yet somehow she got a visa out of it. And then she finds out she got 4th place in a pet show. Mork tells her that she should have at least won in the obedience category, which is funny to me because Mindy is not an obedient person. She's very independent. But maybe compared to other aliens in the pet show, she might have seemed obedient. I mean, she's at least polite most of the time.
Oh, man, I don't know what to... Oh, no, please, baby. No. Thank you. Oh, man, I'm really sorry about that.
This is, in some ways, a surprisingly innocent episode about a honeymoon, and yet we get this interaction which I can only assume is like spouse swapping. With the way Orkin gender works, it seems like a man and a woman, but not necessarily. It's not actually explained, and Mork says whatever he says in Orkin, and then he apologizes to Mindy. He apologizes to her again and says that he wanted to make their honeymoon very, very special. She says it's not his fault. They've just had such a long trip. Again, I don't know how long it was. And the rooms weren't ready, and she came in 4th place. So that does hurt her ego that she did so badly in the pet show. She almost sits on a low pedestal, but Mork stops her. He apologizes in Orkin to the pedestal and then tells Mindy that he went to school with the pedestal's father. Mindy says she just needs some rest and she wants to go to their room. He says he loves her attitude and that she's hanging in there with him. Yes and no. I mean, at first she was very eager to explore the planet and do stuff, and now she just wants to go to their room. He says, no wonder they call you the better half. He's not disappointed in her. He loves her. He's very happy that she's his wife, and then he kisses her hand. One thing I really appreciate about these early season 4 episodes is him kissing her hand. It's just this very sweet gesture. He says they can go upstairs and play newlyweds. They'll count their savings bonds. Again, this innocence. Although it's not fully explained, we will see why that's so innocent. Next time on Becoming Human...
Surprise! Oh, gosh! It's the PV 12, 6, and 7.
Nice to meet you.
You must be Mindy, his wife. Whatever that is.
Guess we're alone now.
I guess so.
Just the 2 of us, huh?
Yep, looks that way.
Honeymoon night. Sure is dark.
Sure is.
Well, it's our wedding night. I better not put this off any longer, huh?
It's not.